Let's get into some Eagles news and notes. Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City. Carson Wentz, not the rookie offensive player of the week, Dave. He was the NFC offensive player of the week, and I guess that'll only add more people to the Wentz wagon.
Yeah, I would think so. You're probably going to have to expand it to a minivan or a big bus now, I would think. Yeah, he's certainly playing well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, look, you obviously you see a kid doing what he's doing, and we've talked a lot about him. But as, you know, I think something that, you know, I talked to Armani Toomer today. We'll air that interview later on in the show. But one thing he said, look, Robert Griffin III was once the guy. Vince Young won games as a rookie. You know, there is some cautiousness that still has to be surrounding this whole situation. But I'll tell you, he makes it tough. I mean, he's a clean-cut kid, the smile. I mean, he seems like he says all the right things. He's a hard guy to not believe in.
Yeah, he is. His personality lends itself to liking him. Very modest, humble, down to earth. Doesn't seem to be letting the success go to his head, which is good to see. But you're right. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, and I still maintain you still have to pump the brakes a little bit here. Like you said, you know, RG3 got off to a great start. Vince Young, Bobby Hoying wasn't a rookie, but his second year he won like 3 or 4 games in a row and outdueled Boomer Simonson, and everybody was all into him. And you know, Nick Foles with the 7 touchdown passes in one game. Yeah, a really long season, so I would just caution people to just, you know, have some patience here.
No doubt. I mean, but I want to,
I don't want to rain on the parade or anything. It's right to get excited. I mean, he's certainly playing terrific, and so the whole team is. But you know, there's a long ways to go here.
Right now, you talk about that. Okay, first week it was the Browns, then it's the Bears, but it's the Steelers this time. Does that make you, who's watched a lot of this, feel a little bit better?
Yeah, it does. About the team, yeah. That they proved a lot to me on Sunday. Like the Steelers, everybody was talking about the potential AFC representative in the Super Bowl. So if the Eagles not only to beat them, but to dominate them and manhandle them, that says a lot about the potential, I think. And it's not just Wentz, it's the defense, the offensive line, and I don't think Doug Pederson's getting enough credit here either. I just think he's done a fantastic job to get to this point.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. We'll get into him because I agree with you. I think both him and Schwartz are 2 underrated factors in what's going on here. But I think another thing, Dave, that's underrated because of Wentz being the rookie, second overall pick, he gets so much of the headlines, but is the depth. I mean, Ryan Matthews gets hurt. Wendell Smallwood and Kenyon Barner pick up the slack. You get Ertz goes out. Selleck and Burton have picked up the slack. I mean, there is some depth on this team that maybe, you know, you didn't realize.
Yeah, they have the depth of the right positions anyway. I'm going to be real curious to see what happens with the Lane Johnson situation, though, because they're going to have to do some mixing and matching here, moving Alan Barber out the right tackle. Stefan Wisniewski, I guess, is going to be the left guard. And I'm just not quite – the offensive line's playing real well right now, but when you're putting guys out of position a little bit, I think it's going to take some there's a potential problem there as far as them gelling and having that same chemistry that they had before. So they do have a lot of depth, but they don't seem to have a lot of depth at the offensive line, though. So that's kind of a concern, I think.
Yeah, what do you see happening once Lane Johnson goes out, which inevitably will be soon, right? I mean, is there a possibility that he could play against the Lions, or is there still a hope that they could have him for one more game?
I'm not real sure how it works, to be honest with you, Mike. I know that he has this appeal scheduled for October 4th, but I'm not sure how soon after that they render their decision one way or the other. Certainly if it extends, beyond the next Sunday, then yeah, he'll play against Detroit. But honestly, I'm not sure what the time frame is. I guess there's a possibility he could play in that game, but there's also a chance that he could be, out for the next 10 games. So yeah. I'm not sure how it works.
Zach Ertz obviously been a big part. He's a big part of their offense. I think maybe their best weapon. You wonder what's going to happen to the offense when he does return. How are they going to mix all three of those tight ends in there?
Well, Doug had talked about before the season even started that he wanted to incorporate a 3 tight end offense. That he had some packages for all 3 guys. So now they've actually been a little bit disappointed they haven't been able to use that yet. So now with Ertz coming back for the Detroit game, they'll give him a chance to. That just adds another weapon to their arsenal. Really, it gives them a chance to use some stuff that they haven't used before. So Trey has certainly proven that he can handle the job. Brent's a reliable veteran, and Ertz got off to a pretty good start before he got hurt. So it's going to be interesting to see how, mixes and matches all those three guys and finds a way to use all three guys.
Hey, Dave, when you look at this team at the bye week, 3 weeks in, everything's been peachy keen. There really hasn't been issues. What are some things out of the bye that Eagle fans should be concerned about?
Well, I think
this team has perfection. That reaction was like, I see perfection out there.
No. Well, it's kind of hard to argue with the results on the field. I think that like Coach Pederson had mentioned on Monday, that I think their biggest concern is complacency or overconfidence, that maybe the danger is that they start to believe, what people are saying, that they really think that they're better than they are. And, when you start doing that, that's when you run into trouble. As long as he can keep them focused and, on track, then I think there's a good possibility they could go on a nice little winning streak here until the next group of tough games comes along. I think they're certainly capable of beating Detroit, Washington after that. And, who knows if they get to 5-0, 6-0, anything can happen at that point. Then they're kind of sitting in the driver's seat. I can't honestly look at their lineup and find any huge holes. I thought that the linebackers were going to be a weak spot, but that hasn't been the case. I thought the corners were going to be a problem. That hasn't been the case. And now they get McKelvin back too now. So, I hate to. Well, I don't hate to, but it's kind of tough to find a fault, to be honest with you.
Well, one thing is, okay, you say it's kind of tough. Where then is a spot, because some of these guys are playing over their heads from what our expectations were.
They are.
Where are who is playing exceptionally better than people thought?
Well, I think the wide receiving core might be the concern. They have trouble holding on to the ball, as you know. So, I think that might be continue to be a problem. They did play well against Pittsburgh, but as far as playing over their head, let's see. Well, Carson certainly is doing much better than I anticipated.
Well, here's one for you. Do you trust Wentz will keep this up more so than, say, okay, an area of concern that I had was the secondary. Nolan Carroll last week looked like he was Deion Sanders. I mean, he was everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I kind of thought all along going into the year that he was going to be their most reliable corner. He was playing pretty well last year until he got hurt, until he broke his leg on Thanksgiving Day, I think it was. So I'm not surprised about him. McKelvin and Jalen Mills, that might be the concern. Ron Brooks, I'm not sure if they've been playing pretty well to this point. I'm not sure if they're up to the task to continue that for the whole year. I think the safeties, Malcolm Jenkins has been playing out of his mind. But he was a Pro Bowler last year, so I guess that's not a huge surprise, and he's certainly capable of doing that every week.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe.
How about Brandon Graham? I mean, this guy has been. I thought Curry was going to be the guy that really got unleashed in this defense, but it's been Graham.
Yeah, well, I've always been kind of higher on Brandon than a lot of other people. His problem, it wasn't his. It was through no fault of his own. He was drafted in the same draft as JPP and the Giants, and everybody always compared him as rookies. But I've always considered him one of their best pass rushers. I think he was playing out of position for the last couple of years, but seemed to get the job done. But now that he is a defensive end. That's his job, and now that he's back in there, I'm not all that surprised that he's putting up the numbers that he's putting up.
Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City. We're looking at the Eagles at the bye week here. Some, kind of interesting things to kind of look at as this team. How about Jason Peters, too? He looks like this offense is rejuvenated him a little bit. He looks fresher, healthier. He looks like the Jason Peters that was that dominating left tackle that if you need a yard, you can go behind him.
Yeah, I think that Pederson's offensive scheme and strategy probably benefits Peters more than or as much as anybody else, if not more so, because he's not on the field as much. Like everybody's talking about the time of possession. I mean, I wouldn't say on the field as much. He's not that hurry-up offense kind of wore him out. I thought, he wasn't used to sprinting down the field on every play, no huddles. Then you're 3 and out, you're on the bench for like 10 seconds back on the field, and he was wearing down. I thought, there's some injuries cropping up here and there, and I don't think he really enjoyed playing for Kelly all that much, to be honest with you. So the fact that they're back with Andy Reid's kind of style huddling most of the time, methodical, leading the league in time with possession. I think it's given him a chance to recharge his batteries a little bit, really. And I heard John McMullen talking about it the other day and he's right, that they do have this pretty elaborate stretching program that he goes through just to get ready to practice. I don't think that's a sign of like him, dealing with injuries or anything. It's just the fact that he's older and needs a little bit more preparation time. So, and I think Pederson did a really good job during training camp and during the preseason of limiting his snaps, giving him breaks and stuff. So I think he'll be fresher as we go on here.
How about the play of Kelsey? Is that something that's concerning? I mean, I know Doug said no considering a change at all, but if you watch the film on him, he's getting beat up a lot.
Yeah, first 2 games especially, I thought he was terrible, but I thought he played better against the Steelers. I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, because I thought Wisniewski might get a chance there since he's played center before, and that's all he played until this year. So I thought maybe if Kelsey had another bad game, that they might consider a switch. But Doug seems pretty in on Kelsey as the leader of the offensive line.
Well, and you wonder how much of that too is Wisniewski looks like he's going to have to play left guard because it seems that he has passed Sayamala.
Right. Because has a strained pectoral muscle, so he's not ready. I didn't think he was ready before he got hurt. To be honest with you, I thought he was awful. Although they seem to know, and they obviously know more about it than I do. But I didn't think that he was. I didn't think he proved that he was ready to step in there as it was. So, and Wisniewski is certainly their best option there at left guard. So I guess that's going to happen too.
Dave, a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball, but Jim Schwartz in the defense. How much? Schwartz himself, he seems to be a really interesting cat. How much is his presence really, changed the complexion of that defense? Because it's a lot of the same personnel.
Yeah, it is. But the strategy's different. They're in a 4-3 and a wide 9, and I think his personality is a lot different than Billy Davis too. I don't mean to disrespect Billy because I thought they played pretty well as a defense for the first half of the year last year.
The last 2 years, the last 2 years, Dave, it seemed like they made it to about Thanksgiving and then ran out of gas.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's partly due to Chip, I would think. The fact that they didn't get any breathers, but as Billy had always said, it's up to them to get off the field, and they weren't doing that, so you can't really pin it all on Chip's stuff. But yeah, you're right. Jim is kind of enforced his personality a little bit on that defense. He's a pretty fiery guy, pretty revved up, and I think that's kind of fired up the whole team. Really, they seem to be playing with a lot more enthusiasm, a lot more aggressiveness. And you can see his personality in the defense for sure.
Also another guy who I think is thriving in the defense is Benny Logan. He's a guy that in the past was kind of just that nose, and you didn't hear much about him, but he seems like he has been a really good fit. And then Fletcher Cox, having him next to him, it seems that this is really working the way you thought, was that Fletcher's just going to take so much attention, and it's going to free up one or two of these guys around him. Right now it looks like Graham and Logan are really prospering from Fletcher.
Yeah, definitely so. And Benny's always been kind of like an undervalued kind of guy in my mind. He never posts like big stats, but he's always been pretty reliable and able to control the middle of the defense. I remember talking about when everybody was talking about the Dallas offensive line last year, and Benny said, just wait and see what happens. And the Eagles front three pretty much dominated him, even with the linebackers, outside linebackers too. And he just said, that's why I told you that was going to happen. And he's a really strong, solid, powerful guy. But just, he's always primarily been responsible for stopping the run and, clogging up the middle. But now that they have, now that Fletcher gets double teamed, on every play, like you were saying, that's kind of freed him up a little bit in the pass rush, too.
Hey, I want to get your take on, Ryan Matthews being out, and then they went right with Smallwood and Barner. But does Smallwood seem like a guy that the Eagles may have to figure out to get more involved in their offense?
Well, I think they're probably going to, only because you can't rely on Ryan Matthews. He's proven that through his career that he's always going to be banged up and always hurt. And I think he's played like a full season maybe once in the last 5 or 6 years. So they knew all along that they were going to need a rotation system there. I'm a little surprised. Well, Smallwood kind of fell behind a little bit because I think he had like a sprained ankle or something, or a hamstring, and that set him back a little bit in the preseason. So it took him a little while to catch up, but I think he's probably back up to speed now, as you saw on Sunday.
But he's
kind of like an intriguing guy to me.
Yeah, he's a tougher runner than people think for his size.
Yeah, he is, and as you probably know, he had a pretty good career at West Virginia, and but he was a 5th-round pick though, and that's kind of, you usually don't get the kind of production from a guy drafted that late, so it's kind of been a pleasant surprise to see him do as well as he did the other day.
Yeah, and he also can catch the ball out of the backfield too if they choose to use him in that role. Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City is with us. Doug Pederson, you mentioned him. I want to get to him and just kind of put into eloquent words like you can write there, Dave, about how Doug has been really almost a perfect fit for recalming this organization, which just seemed like it was so frantic.
Yeah, really, I've got to eat my words here because I was probably his biggest skeptic coming into the year. I just didn't know. I just thought, I was really worried that this job was too big for him, that he just ready to be a head coach. But I couldn't have been more wrong. He's just he's been tremendous on the field, obviously, with his game plans. It's the creativity that he's injected with Carson. Really, the game plans really fit Wentz's strength. He doesn't give him too much that he can too much to handle. Has a really well balanced game plan as far as running the pass goes, and it seems to be really doing a good job of giving Carson confidence, reassuring him when he thinks he needs it, criticizing when he thinks he needs it. And just from the whole team, though, I don't know if you saw the video on Facebook that the Eagles put out, but just the reaction after the Steelers game, how he's really excitable, but he's not out of control. He knows how to tone it back and make sure that they're focused on the job at hand. Don't get it too high or too low. I guess that comes from being a player in the league for so long and being around so many coaches like Mike Holmgren, you read that he kind of knows how to act. And I've really been pleasantly surprised at the job he's done. I think he's probably been their most valuable person, even more so than Carson at this point.
Well, because I think he has a lot to do with why Carson is at the level as advanced as he is right now, right? And, there was a tweet, I guess it's in the Mic'd Up segment that I guess NFL Films or somebody puts out, and there's a scene where Kelsey turns around to Wentz, and he basically says, well, "What are you, a robot? Like it's like you're playing Madden football. You're the player. Like you're doing it right here live. We're watching you be like it's crazy. Like his own teammates are almost kind of in awe about what they're watching."
Yeah, well, kind of when you think about it, he wasn't supposed to play this year. That's the one thing that I kind of take Doug to task for. Not take the task, but he has yet to explain why. The plan was for Bradford to be the starter, and he was the one that was always saying that Carson's not ready, and now all of a sudden he is, and he never quite explained the reason for the change. I don't know how much he had to do with the trade, but it's like you said, Wentz is playing there. He's playing at a level that you rarely see, but like you said earlier, you have to wonder he's going to come back to earth at some point. I think you would have to think so, that defensive coordinators are going to find a way to exploit his weaknesses a little bit if he has any. I haven't seen any yet, but I'm sure there are some. So
one thing Amani Toomer says, and again, we'll air that full interview tonight at 5:30. One thing he said in there that I want to get your opinion on is, and I don't know that I agree with him a whole heck of a lot with this, but he said two things. But one that I want to get your opinion on first. He said he thinks the Eagles had a little bit of an advantage because of a new head coach. They got an extra week of practice, OTAs. You get that extra time because you get a new coach, and he thinks they're further along because that's a stretch, right?
Yeah, I'm calling baloney on that one. No.
I agree.
One extra week in May is not the reason for this. No.
Yeah. One other thing he said was he felt that the quarterbacks get way too much praise, and when they lose, they get too much criticism. But he said he thinks the quarterback position is a little overrated.
I don't know about overrated. I mean, everybody knows that that's the case. That's the glamour position. That's the most important position on the field, and they deserve the praise or the criticism that they get. I would say maybe like if you're talking about say the Broncos last year, where they kind of rode their defense and their running game to the Super Bowl. But Carson's been every bit a part of the Eagles' success as the other parts of the team. So I don't know that he's getting too much praise. I mean, he's certainly getting a lot, but I think it's deserved. I mean, I think I think he's playing fantastic. So I don't quite agree with him on that point either.
Well, he's the NFC Offensive Player of the Week for his efforts in the win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not just a win, Dave, a thrashing, 34-3.
Yeah.
I don't know that too many people saw. Maybe okay. And my big thing entering this year was, regardless of who the quarterback was, I just felt the defense would make them competitive, that they would be able to compete week in and week out because of that defense. And, okay, maybe they didn't have the offensive weapons and they'd fall up short, but they would be competitive in just about every game because I thought their defense is better than I thought it was, but this kid is, the offense is there too. It's not like they're winning 17-7. They're putting 30-plus points, 29 points, 35 points up. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is 29, 34. I mean, you can't argue with that.
They're a plus 65, right? Yeah, they're a differential of like 65. They've only given up 27 points, Dave.
Yeah, the most amazing thing is the turnover ratio too. They have yet to make a mistake on offense.
Well, that's something crazy.
No fumbles.
Two main things, Dave. Two main things. No turnovers and really not a catastrophic injury. You look around the league, and I was talking about this in the first hour, every team just seems like week in and week out loses a big name every single week. It's crazy that this league is able to be this popular.
Every week, I think. Yeah, I know.
That the league stays this popular with those big names constantly getting hurt. Can you imagine like the NBA losing, 5 of their top 10 players for extended periods of time like the NFL does?
Man, that's true. Really true, yep.
Check out Dave Weinberg, Press of Atlantic City, for more on the bye week as the Eagles a little time off. Dave get a little time off. He got a good piece on Arnold Palmer, by the way, for his column this week. Check that out at pressofatlanticcity.com. Yeah, man, we'll talk to you next week as the Eagles get ready to take on the Detroit Lions. Enjoy Detroit, pal.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.